Guys, it's Giovanna here. Today I'm going to be walking you through a makeover. For this particular makeover, she was attending a wedding, and I always like to start off with the moisturizer. This moisturizer is the Clean and Clear Gel. Next, I like to go into eyebrows. This eyebrow pencil that I'm using is a Billion Dollar Brows Universal Brow Pencil. And I just like to fill it in and then also brush them through with the spoolie on the end of the eyebrow pencil. Once the eyebrows are filled in, I like to clean them up. And with this, I'm using the Nars Radiance Creamy Concealer in the color Vanilla. And I just outline the eyebrows with the concealer, and then I will go back in through and buff them out with a buffing brush. The brush that I'm using to buff out is the Bare Minerals Concealer Brush. I like this brush a lot because it doesn't drag on the eye, but it blends everything perfectly. Next, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be applying eyeshadow, and this first transition shade that I'm using is from the Morphe 15D palette in color Forever. I'm just blending this into the crease again as a transition shade. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be packing the Aesthetic shade from the Protege Suva Beauty palette. I pack it into the crease because she wanted a really deep burgundy. So I pack it and then I blend it into the other transition shade. And I do pack it and blend a few times because it's always easier to add more eyeshadow in, but you can't really take eyeshadow away. So I like to build it a little bit instead of just going full on with that deep red. The next shadow I'm going to be using is just a black shadow. This particular one is from the Urban Decay Smokey palette. I believe it's called Black Market, but any black will do. You just put it into the outer corners and blend it in with that burgundy. I just want to deepen out the outer crease. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm cutting the crease using that same Nars concealer that I had used earlier. I'm just going to be cutting the whole crease, and right now I am using another Bare Minerals concealer brush. Next, what I'm doing is I'm packing on the gold shade from the Protege palette called Era. I'm packing that all over the lid. This is also going to set the concealer, and I'm also going to be blending back in a little bit of the red in the Aesthetic color, and then going back in with the Black Market color into the crease. It just gives a little bit more cohesive look if you blend it all together. So after everything is blended the way I wanted to, I'm going to be adding gold glitter to her cut crease. And what I like to do is I actually take the Duo eyelash glue. I like to use the Duo because it's works just as well as any glitter glue, but I don't have to carry a second product. I'm taking just a packing brush and just packing the glitter on. Sometimes you do have to do half the lid and then do the rest of the lid because the glue will dry on you. Now that we're almost done with the eyes, I like to move on to the face. Right now, I'm just taking a cotton swab with makeup remover on it, and I'm cleaning up her face, especially the under eye where a lot of that glitter fell. I'm taking now a red concealer or orange concealer from LA Girl, and this is gonna help cover up the bags under her eyes, any darkness that there is. I'm also taking, again, that Bare Minerals concealer brush and buffing out the concealer so that it's not too heavy underneath her eye. Next, I'm moving on to foundation, and I am taking the Mac Studio Fix. I believe this is NC25 that I used on her, and I'm just blending this in all over her face, and I'm using the Beauty Blender. Of course, you have to use a damp Beauty Blender to get the best effect. It's gonna give it a more natural look all over the face. Once I have the foundation blended the way I want to, I'm going to be adding concealer underneath her eye, and I'm going back again to that Nars Radiance Creamy Concealer, and I'm just putting that underneath her eye in an upside down triangle. And then I'm going to be taking just a chubby buffer from Morphe and blending it out. Once I have the under eye blended out, I'm going into the Anastasia Beverly Hills Contour Cream Kit in medium. I'm using the color Banana underneath her eyes again. I'm also going to be using it on her nose, forehead, and chin. And it's just going to help illuminate and brighten up those areas of the skin. And it's going to help out also when I go back in and contour the cheeks. To blend this out, I'm going to be using the Beauty Blender. And again, I just like to just buff it out a lot. After that, I'm going in with that same cream contour kit in the color Cinnamon, I believe it is that I use. And I'm just carving out her cheeks. She did request that I contour heavily, so I also contoured her chin with this, and I believe I did a little bit of her forehead, and her nose I did later on. So now I'm using the Beauty Blender to buff out that cream contour. Once I have that cream contour blended in, I'm actually going to go in with a powder contour, and this is going to be the Ulta contour kit, and I actually mix a little bit of all the colors to contour out the face. I can never stick with just one. After that, I'm going to be setting her under eyes with the Vulgar powder, and I just let that sit for just a little bit and buff it right out. I don't like to let it sit too long. I don't like to let it bake too long because sometimes it will cause a lot of under eye creasing, especially on older clients. Next, I'm going to be finishing up her eyes. I'm going back in with the Protege palette, and I'm adding a little bit of that Burgundy or the aesthetic shade underneath her eyes. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of the black from the Urban Decay palette. Next, after the under eyes are done, I'm going to be going in and doing eyeliner, and I'm actually using the Tarte Clay Paint Liner in black, and I'm using the brush that came with it. And I'm going to be doing just a little bit of a cat eye. I'm not going to be doing anything too crazy with it. After her eyeliner is done, I'm going to be gluing some eyelashes on her. She actually brought in her own eyelashes and requested that I use those, so I can't tell you what the name of them is or the style of the eyelashes. I do know that these eyelashes were a little bit more difficult to put on. They were very stiff. They weren't very flexible. After the eyelashes, I realized that the contour was a little bit too heavy, so I did take just a chubby brush and blend it out a little bit more. She wanted it really heavy, but I thought it would be a little bit easier to just blend it out. This is where I went back in and contoured the nose. I just used a little bit of the powder contour, and I believe I used the color Bombshell Bronzer on her. I don't like to carve out the nose too much, but she did request it, so I absolutely did it for her, and then I buffed it out just a little bit. You don't want to look like you have 2 lines of dirt going down your nose. Next, I'm doing blush, and I'm using the Nars Orgasm blush. This is my absolute favorite. I will use it on everybody if I'm given the chance. And then after the blush, I am using a highlighter palette from FX, and I'm just highlighting her cheekbones a little bit. I don't like to highlight a lot on older clients because it does kind of bring out any lines or bumps that are on the face if you do highlight a little bit too much. But I'm also highlighting her Cupid's bow, and I believe I did her brow bone a little bit too. I'm using the LA Girl lip liner in the color Blushing to line her lips. This I like to use on almost everybody because no matter what shade you put over it, it's gonna look good. This is a nice pinky natural mauve shade that pretty much goes with any person. For lipstick, I am using a Burgundy from Bite Cosmetics. This is where we had a little bit of a disagreement. Personally, with such a heavy eye look, I would have gone with a nude, but she really wanted a red or burgundy because the dress she was going to be wearing to the wedding was red. So I always like to keep the client happy. She wanted burgundy. We went with burgundy. And finally, I am just setting the face with the MAC Fix It Plus. And these are the final looks of